Yo, 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 what up? It's your boy Allday, and this is an exclusive season-ending episode of Uncivilized After Dark. I am Allday, Uncivilized all day. We are live in Las Vegas. As always, I got my man Nostalgia in
the building.
Astro Studios in Houston. We about to jump right into it. As always, y'all see, once again, our boy Pat. He joining us. We live from Vegas. Watching the 49ers and the Colts play. And they're about to go step out a little later and see Erykah Badu. Tonight's episode, we're going to be discussing the reaction that the trans community, LGBT community, has given to the latest Dave Chappelle episode. My man Pat and Nostalgia will be doing most of the debating. So Pat just got through watching the show, but since he just seen it last, we're gonna let Nostalgia start it off. So Nostalgia, without no further ado, break down to everybody the closer stand-up special that was on Netflix featuring Dave Chappelle, the controversy that is caused, the reaction from the trans community, and your thoughts.
Go ahead, Caleb. Let's hear what you got to say.
So essentially, what happened was this is the last in the third and final series that Dave has on Netflix with his deal. So this is appropriately called The Closer, and most of it was really just addressing, how he's been perceived within the last few specials with this deal. He had the first one, which was Sticks and Stones. Then he had the second one, which was 846, in response to, the George Floyd riots. And then we had this final one, The Closer, in 2021. So a lot of his opening monologues, really, that was really not really attacking, but it was addressing the controversy that he has had with the trans community. He was, as a comedian does, he's making a joke about it. So he's responding to what his life, what is happening and occurring in his life. So I can see how a lot of this is perceived and what's controversial about it, but honestly, I don't really understand it. But it's comedy.
Comedy is funny because comedy came in all sorts of different shapes and sizes back in the day. I mean, I'm sure there's things that groups of people that I would stand around.
Very off color too.
Yeah, I'm sure there's groups of people that I would stand around as a white person from the South, and we would say these are jokes, but to other people they wouldn't seem too funny. So it's like, where's that line? Where is that line? I mean, where is that line drawn between comedy and hate speech or offensive? Now, I just watched it earlier today. Yeah. And so it's fresh, and I think it's funny, but
hilarious.
I definitely see where if you were on the other side of that joke, where it could be misconstrued. I think if you were misconstruing it and you were offended, then you really didn't get what he was trying to say throughout the.
In this case, like, my main question is because the way he addresses this as a comedian, he was responding to what's happening in his day-to-day life, and that's why he gave the personal story about one of his trans friends. So I don't think it's where you have to draw the line, because if people understand what comedy is, that's the realm where you're able to joke. Like, that's where you dig deep and you express yourself through comedic action. You're looking for a laugh, but yes, it's a little bit of truth in it. But in Dave's case, it's just, his is like, the normal up-to-date comedy. You got to be up-to-date as a comedian, right? You can't be behind what's current. So in this day and age, a lot of the LGBTQ people that movement that's a current movement. Dave took some years off, so if we come back with his first special, he addressing what's happening in his life currently. So I think as a comedian, there's a line between comedy and bullying, but I think in this case people are mixing the two just to have their open opinion.
So let me ask you, a few years back, there was I want to say he was a New York Times cartoonist that drew some pictures of the Prophet Muhammad. and did some political cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad. There was death threats on his life, and I think to this day he still has a bounty on his head. I mean, what do you think about that? That's comedy. I mean, it's political humor, it's satire. I mean, do you?
It's political humor, yes, but I think it is also that's when you get into you as a comedian, you have to recognize whatever material you are like you have to educate yourself. You can't just openly. I mean, the Prophet Muhammad, that's a known. Like, you can't depict that in any way, shape, or form. No media, no nothing. You can't even draw it. That's a crime in the Muslim world, you know? So, I think it's the comedian's job to be educated. And I think what people are missing the point with Dave's speech is he's saying, yes, I'm educated on this, and I'm open to more conversations on it. But in the meantime, as a comedian, you can't fault me for doing my job as a comedian and making light of it because I'm making fun of every other group. But I'm also educated enough to know where that line is drawn. But you also have that line drawn when you're making fun of all these other groups. So you can't be the odd one out and say, hey, this isn't cool when you see like, you know, I'm not gonna tell people how they can and can't be offended, but you can't if you know there has to be a line drawn somewhere and you know all these other groups of people are getting the same line drawn for them, it's kind of a catch-22. Like, you can't really, you know, it's kind of hard to dictate how you feel or how you can perceive your feelings in that scenario.
So are you saying that
in the comedians?
Are you saying that since he's an equal opportunity offender, that nobody should be offended since he's offended everybody, and he really does. He takes shots. He takes shots at everybody.
Yeah. That's my point. He takes shots at everybody. I'm not saying you can't be offended, but if it's equal treatment, it's equal treatment. You know. So it's, you know.
You know, comedy's a funny thing these days, you know, because of the cancel culture. I mean, you know, a lot of the funny comedians are kind of biting, and they do push out, you know, social irregularities, and they make fun of social norms and not social norms, and, you know, they kind of, you know, try to make social change by making fun of things and pointing out how, you know, crazy these things,
how ridiculous it is.
That's right.
You know, like, some things are just ridiculous.
Yeah, some things are just crazy and ridiculous. So, I mean, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, you know, we're in a, you know, when you say that, it's like, you know, we're in an age where, you know, I'm a 51-year-old white guy, or actually, my mom was, you know, of Lebanese, is Lebanese or was Lebanese, so, you know, to the norm, I'm the privileged class. So, you know, what if I would have made those jokes? What if it wasn't a black guy that made those jokes? Would it have been worse? You know? I mean, how would that have been received?
Probably would have been worse.
Well, may I?
Yeah,
Nostalgia. Well, what I wanted to say, real quick, just the whole conversation is a trap. Dave did the stand up. His main point is he basically told you his issue is not with the alphabet people. He don't have an issue with anybody, but the people that he criticized the most are white people. Yeah. That's been a common theme of his stand up from the beginning of him doing his jokes. He damn near is saying that it's almost, well, he wasn't saying that trannies don't exist, but what he was saying was that it's now more of a white man thing. And since it's a white man who wants to be a tranny now, that is why their causes, their beliefs have jumped over the hurdle past black people.
Correct.
Which is his overall argument.
Correct.
The gays, all of them jumped over us as far as getting equal rights, the movement. They have a strong voice in the Me Too movement, whereas
because they have a white, a white male, spokesperson,
audience,
right?
And Jenner,
and that was his. That was his. So, and even still, Caitlyn Jenner. They don't even.
Hold on, Caleb.
They don't even really rock with her, you know. So it's different. It's different standpoints with all of them, and I get it. Because they want to have that equal voice, but at the same time, when you have that equal voice, you have to recognize if you're going to be the group that's being subjugated to this division within politics, you have to recognize that as that type of group of people. You have to uplift any other people with you that are facing that same adversity. So I think Dave's point is like, yeah, it's all messed up for all of us, but we all have a common enemy. But at the same time, we have to recognize that not everything is as harsh as you're trying to make it out to be. That's what his main point was. You know, we can all laugh together.
Well, what he was saying about that was, hey, look, this is about comedy. This isn't about black and white. This is about making jokes. This is about, calling the craziness as he sees it. He said the trans community had no voice until they had a white man become a transsexual who was a, superstar in his own right. Now, all of a sudden, they've got this voice. And
even bigger than that, he was saying, even without her, they have a stronger voice than black people do.
Yeah.
And I find that to be true. And also I noticed, I've read a few articles from trans advocacies, whether they were trans or not. They were basically criticizing the special. They never addressed what he was saying. He said, y'all don't listen. He went back and listed all of the jokes he basically said over the 4 or 5 specials that he's done since he's come back. Mm-hmm. He asked them, why was it easier for Bruce Jenner to change her sexual orientation than it was for Cassius Clay to change his name to Muhammad Ali? It was way harder. That statement alone shuts down all of the criticism, because no one is answering the questions that he's asking. Only one journalist said, I hear him on his being a champion of black people, but at this point, he needs to champion other causes. And I was like, no, he don't.
No, why does he need to be everybody's champion?
Exactly. So I thought that was
you're a champion of your people
to make.
So you fight for your people.
And I think a little bit, and what he did at the end when he showed all the pictures of all his friends that he all took pictures with, it was very telling that he's transcended. Like many comedians do, they transcend their own race or anything else because everybody finds them funny. So now, he says, I live in a white world. I date white women, white hippies with dirty feet. I live in Ohio where he just sits around and gets high with his buddies all day, hangs around with all those guys. And you hear it in the special. He makes fun of everybody.
Yes, he do. We rewatched the show, ladies and gentlemen. There's 2 rather large women, 2 large white women sitting in the audience, right?
That was
they get hilarious throughout the whole hilarious show. They didn't get mad at the tranny jokes. They didn't get mad at the nigger jokes. They didn't get mad at the white people jokes either. Nostalgia. They didn't even get mad at that. You want to know what they got mad at? When he called them Trump country.
Yes.
That's when they got mad. They stopped laughing at his jokes after that. If you go back and watch that special, they laughed up until he said that. My point I'm making, ladies and gentlemen, is what Pat just said. He fucks with everybody.
Everyone.
He fucks with everybody, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, he said, one comedian, Michael Blackson, you were wrong for this. You can't snitch on the baby about something that's public fucking record. If you look up, has the baby ever killed anyone? Before you even finish the sentence, yes. Google is going to answer it for you. It's going to finish the sentence for you. You know how you go to Google and you search for something?
Yeah.
And we were just talking about this earlier, right? Yeah. And when you search for, let's say you go to Google and you search for Apple. As soon as you put the P, what does it do, ladies and gentlemen? P-L-E. It finishes it for you.
Yep.
Well, that's the same thing that will happen if you say the baby K. You can put K. And it's going to say kills man in Walmart in Northern Carolina.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh. And what did Dave Chappelle say, Nostalgia? He said, nothing happened to that man's career. Walmart. See where he was going with this?
Say something about them. But I think with a lot of, and this is going to be our later conversation, what a lot of things today with social media, people don't
people don't read into context. So when they do see the baby kills a man in Walmart, they don't read into the fact that the baby kills a man, comma, in
In
self-defense
self-defense,
in
exactly.
Walmart. So like that context matters with a lot of things, and that's the point a lot of people are missing nowadays. And we gonna get into it later on. But with social media, that it gives everybody an equal opinion to kind of chime in on things. So that's his main point was, hey, uh,
look more into things before you react to people and what I'm saying, because I'm not attacking this certain group of people. I'm just addressing them, and I'm addressing my thoughts as a comedian. And as a comedian, I'm gonna do it in a way more outrageous and funny and in more entertaining way than a normal conversation would, because that's my job.
I think you hit the nail. I mean, I think if you sum this whole conversation up as it is, I think you just hit the nail on the head with that. I mean, this was just for him. It was a social experiment, and this was,
of course, because the first special, he didn't even anticipate all the outrage with that. So this one, appropriately called the closer. Hey, here's my final thoughts.
Well, and the point being is that you talk about we are a soundbite world where all we hear is one or two lines and we get reactive. Nobody looks at anything. Nobody reads anything. Nobody hears the whole statement. You've got news organizations that are taking pieces of comments and taking the same speech and creating two different scenarios because they've moved this or they've cut off here. Or when he said this, they stopped there. That's the world we live in. And especially with this special, I can see where the LGBT community or the gay community thinks that he's bashing. If they didn't watch the whole thing, if they didn't do that, and they just got fed the algorithm of hate that one of these social media does, because remember, these social media outlets, their algorithm feeds you what you like. So if you're liking something and if you're engaging in something,
With that, like how you just said, on TikTok, it's a thing called the For You page, and it's on every social media app. Whatever you like, that ends up on that page. So whatever your thoughts are, and somebody did a whole experiment. They like explicitly like anti LGBTQ, anti Black Lives Matter stuff on the TikTok algorithm, and within 20 minutes, that's all they were fed.
that's right. So that's my point, is that if you're part of that group, I can see where people are getting enraged by this special because all they're hearing is the 2-second, 3-second soundbite of him making the joke, which was actually a pretty funny joke about near meat and how they're using prune.
That's hilarious.
That's a hilarious joke. I mean,
That joke shouldn't have offended him, though, because he said far worse jokes than that about black people. He said far worse jokes than that about white people, and he says far worse jokes than that about gay people.
But my point being is that if all you're doing is taking in sound bites, like most of these people are taking in social media clips, that's going to enrage you. But if you sit and watch and really make opinions for yourself, and really take in the content and make sure that you're listening and understanding what he's saying and the message, I mean, it's really an incredible special. I mean, it's really heartwarming. He really gets real with people. He gets real about emotional things, about suicide, about some of the problems that go on in the community. I mean, I think to discount this, and I think, honestly, and this is the last I'll say on this, I think the Netflix executives were right on by keeping it up. Right on by not bending to
100%.
There was never going to be a doubt that episode was never going to get pulled, so that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, that was it. I don't, like you said, I don't think they weren't going to gain anything by pulling it because they already paid him, or he wasn't going to gain or lose anything by them pulling it because he already made that 20 M's. And plus, being an era of, you could just look it up anywhere, get a link to it. So, but he definitely accomplished his goal, I think, with this one.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that was just to bring more light to his main fight at hand, which is, of course, goes back to just black versus white, which not the full battle, of course, and that I'm putting it into divisiveness, but
Yeah. No,
like he said,
I think he he likes to point out the injustices, which are fine. That's the key. I mean, the key is we got to point out injustices and deal with them.
Period. Like not even just one like art. Like you can't if you can decipher the root of all the problems. That's when it becomes a lot easier to ignore all the other just noises, you know. And I think that's the point where a lot of people get to because we live in a world where everybody's opinion is at a click of a button.
So
That's right.
If you're a person who can ignore it to the degree where you only focus on the main problem, then that's where you find a lot of peace, and that's where a lot of that just become back to just the empty noise, and you back in your own little bubble.
Comedians through time have really dealt with social injustices in a comedic way and made change. I mean, if you look back,
Rest in peace, George Carlin,
and or Richard Pryor, or some of the first great comedians that were out there, great stand-ups. I mean, even going further back than that, they've dealt with things in a comedic fashion. I think that we're so watered down now, and we're so scared to take on anything that this is kind of refreshing. It's refreshing that he takes a shit on. It's refreshing that he, is not afraid to point out some of the silliness, and for some of the community to get caught up in the minutia of the actual joke and not really hear the message is just kind of silly to me.
Well, that's why I keep saying that this was a trap, because it mirrors a lot of the stuff that I go through, and Pat's not one of them, ladies and gentlemen. Before I say what I'm about to say, but I'm gonna say it anyway. When a person is racist or someone, it can be a high school, elementary thing where a kid is in class and the teacher picks on a kid to answer a question. The first kid gets it wrong. And for some reason, that kid was in a bad fucking mood anyway that day. So he snaps on the teacher. Teacher reprimands him. Next kid gets it right. Everyone cheers for this kid. And now the kid who just got clowned by the teacher wants to kick that kid's ass. Now, here's the thing. He don't want to kick that kid's ass because the kid did anything to him. It's really what's called it, transferred energy. He's mad at the teacher, but he can't beat the teacher's ass. So he wants to beat up the kid. Now, and then he'll keep that energy with that kid probably for the rest of that school year. It won't matter what that kid can say hi the wrong way, and that dude is going to get upset. The dude in this case are the white people or racist people. When people are racist, ladies and gentlemen, it don't matter what fucking comes out their mouth, they're going to have a problem with it. But when it's someone that's as articulate and as smart and as brilliant and can break shit down like Dave Chappelle can, that infuriates them. And that's what makes them come even harder. Like, we really got to cancel him. And since there's nothing out there, you cancel people for the right reasons, like Bill Cosby allegedly raping 30 women. That's something to cancel a motherfucker over.
R. Kelly for definitely marrying Aaliyah.
And pissing and shitting on people. That's the reason to cancel a motherfucker. But
Kelly.
Canceling him, canceling him because he criticized you.
The other dude
because
on the island,
he told
Jeffrey
a
Epstein.
joke about you. They're not mad because he's telling jokes, ladies and gentlemen. They're mad because he's telling the truth.
Truths. That's what they're mad about.
That's the problem. They're mad because he's telling the fucking truth. And that's why.
And when you have the truth, you can't divide people as you can, like how it's being, like how black people in the LGBTQ community are being divided. When the root of all of it is, I'm not. So, like I said, I think he proved his point. I think you proved your point all day when you said it. Like, that's when you see the person articulating it, you're gonna want to attack the articulator because you know what the real truth is.
The biggest enemy to misinformation is education.
Yes.
So if you educate people to the likenesses instead of the differences in our communities, that scares a lot of people.
Yeah.
They have a lot of trouble realizing that we all have in the basic needs and fears and everything. All our basic needs and fears are all the same. But that or realizing that doesn't keep one segment of people down. like some people want it. So, like I said, the difference between or the basic, enemy of ignorance is education.
Yes, it is. And the best thing to combat ignorance is righteousness. It's like ignorance don't have nowhere to go when it combats righteousness. It may look like
They
ignorance
get that
is gonna
stuck
win.
look, like how some people begin when they get proved wrong when they racist. They just get stuck.
Or that look that he said that one guy had. The two black guys with the tranny.
Yeah. And then so it just he was prepared. The story he told about his friend who he let open for him, who killed herself. Nobody from that critical community has said anything about that, ladies and gentlemen.
No.
At least I haven't seen anything.
Anybody say anything?
No one
They
said
can't,
nothing
because
about
if you
that.
do, you're a hypocrite, because that same base attacked her for defending him.
Right.
So that's when you get called how we call certain white hip hop artists culture vultures, like Post Malone and other people like him in that regard. That's how they viewed her, his friend, and that's how they view Caitlyn Jenner currently, because she's I guess quote unquote switched sides by becoming or staying a Republican.
Yeah, but that's such a bad use of that expression. I mean, culture
Exactly.
vulture.
That's why,
Culture
like,
vulture is
they look at
different
that
than-
as their coons.
So-
So it's I don't get it. That's why it's all hypocritical and confusing. But I admire the firmness in I guess identifying what you would quote as an enemy. But at the same time, that's where you have to be careful, because you're harming yourself. Because at that point, you're losing an ally, or possibly losing an ally.
Well,
And
the one thing about some communities that I think where communities get in problems is that they don't embrace their diversity. They want to say that everybody needs to follow this person. This person's the leader of the community. This person's the leader of the community. That person's the leader of the community. And I think a lot of those people that are so-called leaders of the community might speak for a small portion of that community, but they don't speak for the whole community. And I think that, a community that is strong says, you know what, we've got community members that are purple. We've got community members that are red. We got community members that have 4 heads, 3 arms, 3 legs, whatever. They're our community, they're our family. We stand strong behind no matter what they say, their diversities, their differences, we stand behind them. So like the LGBT community saying that this girl is wrong because she didn't, bash Chappelle, and she had a different experience with Chappelle, and she had a favorable experience with Chappelle is absolutely ignorant and asinine in my book. I mean, all you're doing is, or the people that say that Caitlyn Jenner is wrong and this and that. No, I mean, Caitlyn Jenner felt like a woman and changed her biologically herself to a woman. That, she's transgender as the rest of you. Just because she doesn't fit your political views doesn't make her any less transgender. And when you tear that down, you tear down the whole community. And you tear down what they are. And what you want people to realize that they are normal human beings, just like everybody else. And normal human beings have differing opinions. They're part of your community. They're part of your family. That's still it. But they're still normal human beings, whether they're transgender, whether they're gay, whether they're lesbian. They're still normal human beings. They're still part of our family, the human family. So when you start separating people by their political views, based, and you're just tearing down your own community. You're just tearing it down, and I think it's ignorant.
Yeah, that's the point. He was really trying to make, like, we all just can laugh at it, because at the bare bones, it's kind of like, it's just funny how we fighting about it. But like I said, I think it all goes back to the point where, like, everybody's opinions are being fed too openly, and not as openly as I'm saying, but like as in a state where you're not hearing everybody because you're not choosing to read it. You want to fit your narrative that makes you feel good in that moment, and I get it. That's a human reaction, you're always looking after yourself at the end of the day, but can't hold it too much to heart. Let's all just laugh.
Let's just laugh. Yeah. Like those 2 guys are saying outside the next Netflix building. We like laughing. Yeah. We like comedians. We like laughing. It was funny. and those two women were, basically assaulting these guys. And it's like, okay, where's your line? Where's your line? So your justification to assault this guy and hit him and assault another guy and send one guy to the hospital because you were offended by a joke.
But I'm telling you, they weren't offended by the joke. They are offended because he's telling the truth. Hey, I want to, because we went 30 minutes strong, and we could probably talk about this all night, yeah. But I want to say something real quick because we're going to take off. And when we do take off, we're going to take a break for a while. This is our season finale, really, for both shows, because really to me and to Nostalgia, it's not two shows. It's been Uncivilized. We've had a couple of special Nostalgia. You can hear me still?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. We have a couple of special episodes that we've done here in Vegas. It's been beautiful. My man Nostalgia. But we want to give y'all a better, doper package going forward. And on this hiatus, as we get our season ending up to wraps, when we come back, man, we're going to come back even stronger, even better, consistent. I'm excited about what's happening in the future. And even listening to this conversation now, man, I am convinced my man Nostalgia is the perfect partner for me to take this journey with. And I want to give it its full and undivided attention and due diligence. That's why we're doing this season end, so we can come back harder and stronger. I want to thank my man Nostalgia for this time, the energy that he's given. I want to thank my man Pat for allowing us to.
It's been unique, man.
Yeah,
a lot of things happen I didn't expect to happen.
Yeah, but we gon' make it all right, y'all. I can guarantee you that. So, on behalf of the entire team, Angel House Studios, Trust Process, Out of Trench, my man Nostalgia, his moms, B. DeMausolier, the Freelises, the Williams, the DeMausoliers, the Guillerys. I know my man Nostalgia want to say some final words and give a shout out to his relative. So go ahead and end this show off on a good note, Nostalgia. This your boy Allday signing out. Nostalgia, take us out.
Like I said, man, this shit been crazy. Shit happened that I didn't expect to happen. It's been a unique experience. And it's been a unique journey. So I want to give a shout out to my cousin, no longer with us, but he in the spirit. LB, I love you. This Uncivilized. We gonna be back soon. We out.
Yes, sir. Peace.